The first light of dawn touched the pale stone walls of the palace precinct, brushing their surfaces with a muted gold that never startled, only slowly awakened the world around them. In the quiet streets nearby, where the homes of the elite scribes stood in modest yet well-kept rows, the early morning carried a hushed stillness. It was here, in these simple dwellings of mud brick and smooth plaster, that the men who shaped the written voice of the kingdom began their day with a calm that matched the steady rise of the sun. Their work, though sacred and essential, unfolded within a gentle rhythm that echoed through their daily routines and through the halls of administration they served. Inside one such home, a scribe named Nebra stirred from his mat, the woven reeds beneath him still holding a trace of the night's coolness. The room was dim and quiet, lit only by the faint glow seeping through the small window high on the wall. He sat for a moment, letting the heaviness of sleep slip away, listening to the soft rustle of his wife preparing grain in the adjoining room. The scent of damp earth drifted in from the courtyard, mingling with the faint smell of ink from the writing palette he kept near the doorway, its wooden surface smooth from years of careful use. Nebra rose slowly, stretching his arms as he stepped into the courtyard, where a gentle breeze stirred the leaves of a small fig tree. The early air carried the sound of distant birds beginning their morning songs, the kind that rose and fell in soothing patterns that matched the awakening of the palace grounds. His writing tools, a palette with carved depressions for black and red pigment cakes, slender reed pens softened by chewed ends, and a small jar of water rested neatly on a low table. He touched them with a practiced familiarity, making sure nothing had dried overnight. He moistened the cakes slightly, working with the same patient motion he applied to every part of his day. After a simple breakfast of bread, dates, and a small cup of watered beer, Nebra wrapped his light linen garment neatly around himself and stepped out into the street. The sky had brightened into a tender shade of morning rose, and the sun's warmth brushed lightly against the tops of the walls. Other scribes were emerging from their homes as well, moving with quiet ease, greeting one another in low voices that never broke the morning calm. They carried their writing boards, their rolled papyri, their small satchels, all of it carefully arranged as though the tools themselves encouraged order and serenity. The administrative building stood near the palace entrance, its courtyard shaded by tall columns and broad canopies of woven reeds. The air here felt cooler, touched by the faint scent of papyrus fibers and the dryness of stored scrolls. Inside, the rooms were arranged with comforting symmetry, rows of mats for sitting, baskets of documents neatly stacked, jars sealed with wax to protect records from damp air. Nebra walked to his usual place near the window, where the morning light fell softly across the low writing table. He placed his tools down gently, savoring the small rituals that began each working day. Scribes like Nebra served many functions. They recorded harvests from the temple's fields, counted grain stored in vast silos, copied hymns for priests, and maintained the accounts of craftsmen, merchants, and laborers. Yet the work never felt hurried. The kingdom's order was upheld through patience, and the scribes moved within that steady current. Nebra began his morning by reading the record he had copied the previous day, his eyes following the steady lines of hieratic script. The characters flowed like water, curving gently across the papyrus, each formed with a meticulous calm that mirrored the scribe's own state of mind. Soon, the overseer entered, his steps measured, carrying a new set of tallies from the palace granaries. He greeted Nebra with a soft nod before distributing the tablets on which grain quantities had been marked. The wooden boards bore carved symbols and notches made by the workers who tended the silos, and it was Nebra's task to translate these notations into formal records. He dipped his reed pen into the black pigment, letting the ink gather slowly at the tip, then touched it lightly to the papyrus. Line by line, he copied the information, pausing often to ensure the accuracy of each number. The room around him was filled with the soft scratching of pens, the gentle rustle of papyrus, and the muted murmur of scribes consulting one another when a mark seemed unclear. By mid-morning, shafts of warm sunlight filtered through the windows, illuminating faint dust motes that danced slowly in the air. The scribes put down their pens for a moment to rest their hands, flexing their fingers with unhurried motions. Servants moved between the rooms, offering cool water in ceramic jars. Nebra took a long sip, feeling the refreshing chill settle into his chest. The building hummed with quiet activity, never loud, always measured. Even when officials arrived with news or requests from the palace chambers, their voices remained steady, as if the very presence of the scribes encouraged a more thoughtful pace. Outside, the sounds of the city drifted softly through the open windows. The calls of merchants in the marketplace reached them in muted echoes. The clip of donkey hooves on packed earth blended with the distant clatter of pottery being stacked by vendors preparing for the day's trade. Yet inside the administrative rooms, the atmosphere remained still, protected by the calm discipline that governed their work. Nebra resumed his writing, switching to red pigment when marking headings or names of importance. The subtle shift in color, adding gentle variation to the rows of careful script. Around midday, the scribes gathered in the courtyard to eat. They sat in small groups under the shade of the columns, unwrapping bundles of bread, onions, and roasted beans, or sharing small bowls of barley porridge sweetened with honey. The meal was quiet, punctuated with soft conversation about the river's level, the heat of the day, or the fine quality of a new batch of papyrus. A warm breeze drifted through, carrying with it the scent of the palace gardens nearby, lotus flowers blooming in wide pools, fresh herbs crushed under the sandals of gardeners tending the paths. Nebra leaned back slightly, letting the stillness of the moment settle around him like a second skin. After the midday break, the scribes returned to their tasks with the same gentle rhythm as before. Nebra moved to a different table where letters needed to be transcribed for a minor official in charge of regional livestock. These messages were written with careful phrasing and formal greetings, the kind that had been passed down from generations of scribes. Writing them required not only precision, but a kind of meditative ease, a willingness to let the familiar patterns of words guide the hand. The afternoon sun warmed the chamber, but never too harshly, its light softened by woven screens placed along the walls. As the hours passed, the building filled again with the steady pattern of writing and quiet speech. The scribes occasionally paused to smooth the papyrus with the flat of their hands, or to sharpen a reed against a small stone kept for that purpose. The repetitive nature of these tasks brought comfort. Each day followed similar steps, reviewing, copying, calculating, storing. And within that predictability lay a peace that made the work feel almost like a long, slow prayer. By late afternoon, the final records were stored in clay jars or placed in wooden chests marked with simple symbols to identify their contents. Nebra walked with his colleagues to the storage hall, where the air was cooler and carried the faint aroma of dry papyrus. They slid the scrolls gently into their designated niches, the rustle of fibers a soft farewell to the day's efforts. When the last record was put away, the scribes washed their hands in basins of cool water, rinsing away the ink that had stained their fingers. Leaving the administrative building, Nebra stepped into the soft glow of the descending sun. The air felt different now, warmer near the ground, cooler along the breeze that drifted from the river. He made his way slowly through the streets, passing through the edges of the marketplace where vendors were beginning to pack their goods. The smell of spices lingered in the warm air, mingling with the earthy scent of freshly cut reeds sold for household use. Children ran past in small groups, their laughter soft and unintrusive, like a gentle ripple of sound weaving through the evening calm. Upon reaching home, Nebra greeted his family with a quiet smile. His wife prepared a small evening meal, stirring a pot of lentils seasoned with herbs from their garden. Their children sat nearby shaping little clay figures or practicing simple characters on broken potsherds, their small hands mimicking the steady movements they had watched from their father. The low hum of family life filled the courtyard with a soothing warmth that eased away the last remnants of the day's tasks. As dusk settled, the household gathered for dinner. They ate slowly, savoring the textures of the food and the comforting routine of the evening. Afterward, Nebra sat near the doorway, enjoying the coolness that drifted in from the street. Lamps flickered in nearby homes, their golden light casting soft patterns across the walls. In the distance, a priest's chant floated from the temple precinct, its tones drawn out and measured, blending seamlessly with the subdued murmur of neighborhood families settling into rest. Before bedtime, Nebra took a moment to examine his writing tools once more. He cleaned the tips of his reed pens, smoothing any rough fibers that might disrupt tomorrow's work. He refreshed the pigments in his palette, adding a few drops of water to keep them pliable. As he arranged everything neatly on the low table, he felt the familiar sense of quiet readiness that always marked the end of one day and the beginning of the next. His life, like his writing, flowed in unbroken lines, steady, patient, shaped by the gentle rhythm of responsibilities that remained constant through the changing seasons. When night fully enveloped the city, Nebra lay down on his mat once again, the faint sound of the river almost imperceptible in the distance. The cool air drifted through the room, carrying with it the reassurance of another day completed in balance and calm. His eyes closed slowly, his thoughts settling like soft dust onto the quiet memory of the day's ink and papyrus. And with the same peaceful certainty that guided his hand across each scroll, he drifted into sleep, ready to rise again with the sun and repeat the comforting rhythms of the life he knew so well.